How many of you are prepared for an incident like this? Get my new book, Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival, and I will teach you to think like an attacker so you can truly defend yourself. Don't just react, act. Available for pre-order now on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Sheep No More. Get it.
My name is Jonathan Gillum.
And this is The Experts. This is Jonathan Gillum, and this is The Experts on Facebook Live, Twitter, and YouTube. And tonight we're going to talk a little bit about, I don't know, I said on the titles, Samantha Powers and her unmasking gone wild, but again, it's really government gone wild again. I mean, it's just every single day, it seems like we're either talking about unmasking, leaking, Mueller going far beyond his authority, or what it should have been his authority. The assistant U.S. attorneys doing some very unethical things like they did with Paul Manafort. And the inability of the Attorney General to do anything. It's the strangest thing I've ever seen with the Attorney General. don't get it. But we're going to talk about that, and also pay close attention to Puerto Rico. This is a crisis that you need to watch. Let's talk about it. All right, I had to write Jeff Sessions' name down because I forgot it for some reason today. So, Jeff Sessions, where are you, man? If you're not going to do your job, get out of it. Because you know, it's interesting, folks. This whole thing, this whole Russian thing was really, I have to lay a lot of it down on Jeff Sessions, because and I know people will disagree with me. Some people will say no, that they're investigating this stuff, it's real, blah blah. I've lost friends over this nonsense. Friends that know very little about the reality of investigations, if anything at all, but yet they quickly forget that I don't know, I had 8 years of experience in the FBI and in the Federal Air Marshals and in the SEAL teams. Even in the SEAL teams, what we do when we go out there and exploit something is we are investigating. It's just a lot of times very rapid investigations, but overall, when we're carrying out a mission profile, it will lead to another mission, the same way as in the FBI when we're developing a mission and it leads to something else and we develop the spider web. It's no different, okay? But it doesn't matter to people. A lot of people this day and age, because they have their own social media, they can pick up their own smartphone and they think, well, I know just as much as you do. I know just as much about what's going on as you do. When in reality, all they know is what's being told to them by mainstream media, and most of that is, well, all of mainstream media pretty much is entertainment. All right, people have to start realizing this. It's not, mainstream media is not set up. I had a long conversation with somebody today about the reality of what people want. Listen, if there's somebody out there that knows a billionaire, or if you happen to be a billionaire that's watching this show, reach out to me on my website. Let's sit down. I know exactly what's going to solve this whole problem with media. We can sit down and we can fix this and potentially save the country through media. I'm being honest with you. Media is the one thing it's the linchpin and the grenade that is blowing this entire country up. But I think also that it is the thing that could actually fix this problem. But it's interesting, even Walter Cronkite was very, very liberal. However, Walter Cronkite did show up every night, and his concept was honesty. Present honesty. Whether or not he's, was showing his liberal ways throughout his time in the news, people still showed up to watch it because they thought or perceived that he was honest. He didn't show up. He wasn't flamboyant. He didn't. Certainly wasn't. Good looking as like some blonde-headed woman on Fox News. He was a journalist. And although the more I find out about him, the more weird I think he is. The fact is, there was a time in journalism where reporters went out to get facts. Salacious stories were always great. Journalism would always go after that because that was the thing that helped sell papers. But back in the day, people literally wanted to know what is really happening. Now, entertainment has always been a part of journalism. But now, journalism really doesn't exist. It's always, let's report this and let's see if it catches the public's eye. If it doesn't, we're going to move on. They don't report stuff so that the public is informed. They report stuff so that the public will tune in and buy advertising or pay, or will buy something. Advertisers will continue to pay. That's what this whole thing boils down to: subscriptions, cable ratings, and advertising. And so when we look at the reality of what's happening in Washington, D.C., and anyway, but what I was going to get back to real quick about that is that's what people want. They want facts. They want to hear stuff from experts. That's why people show up every night and watch this show. heaven help us. I would love this problem. If anybody ever realizes the potential that the truth has, and they reach out to us and they give us a shot, this thing is going to take off, because people want to hear stuff like this. They want to hear analysis of the truth from people who are in the know. Now, that brings me back to what I was saying there a second ago, is that I've lost friends over this that know nothing about investigations. They've never been an investigator. They don't know the reality about no-knock warrants. And although I'm sure that there are warrants where, in the case of maybe foreign counterintelligence, where you pick the lock and you're able to enter, you get a warrant for that, you enter, and that way you're in the house so they don't destroy anything. Well, you know, there's a big difference between a no-knock warrant where you knock the door down and you rush in to get bad guys who may have guns and who may flush drugs down the toilet, okay? No-knock warrants are understood there, but I personally have never heard of a no-knock warrant where they pick the lock. Now, I'm not saying, I was never in foreign counterintelligence, so I don't know if they can get those things or not. I do know that when it comes to spy versus spy, they can go in and they can pick the lock and go in. Typically, the person's not there. And they can either plant listening devices, or they can go and look at stuff and then put it all back the way it was and get out of there because they're looking for evidence. They can get warrants to do that in the case of foreign counterintelligence. But most no-knock warrants are you walk up there, and it's at a certain time between 6 a.m. and 10 p.m. is when you get these no-knock warrants. Rarely will you get a warrant for past 10 p.m. and up until 6 a.m. They just don't give those warrants because they don't want to infringe on the public's ability to sleep, I guess. So what happens is you go up there and you bust the door down and you rush in. And as quickly as possible, you flood the property with officers or agents, and you get in there and you try to get whatever you're looking for, and whoever the bad guy is, or keep them from flushing anything. And then once you get in there, if you have reasonable suspicion that there might be something in this drawer or in that thing, you get a warrant for that, or you already have it stipulated that you're able to go into everything. I've never personally ever heard of a warrant that's a no-knock warrant where you pick the lock and then you go into somebody's bedroom who is not a risk of flight, who is not a violent offender. There's no imminent threat of anybody dying. There was no report of weapons in the place. I never heard anything like that. And it wasn't about drugs, so we know he's not going to flush a ream of papers down a toilet or even burn them, or destroy a computer that fast. It takes longer than the time to knock a door in and rush into a place to destroy a computer. So, and the way our agents work, and the cartographers, the people who go through and actually work on the computer hard drives, they can go and get information off of burnt hard drives. Or hard drives have been thrown in salt water or beaten up with a hammer. They can get a tremendous amount of information off that. So I don't really understand, and I've never personally heard of a no-knock warrant in a case where it was used for intimidation, which is what this appears to be to me. Now, when we look at the FISA warrants that were signed that allowed for this monitoring to go on during the presidential election, at the time, right at the critical time of the presidential election, then you see this no-knock warrant where they allowed agents or whoever it was that went in there and then went into the bedroom to wake Paul Manafort up. The judges, what I'm starting to see here is consistently a pattern of politicized judges and a leftist group of rogue agents, executives, and political appointees in the DOJ, the FBI, and the intelligence community. That's what it appears to me. Now, people may say, well, that's just because you're conservative and yada. Now, anybody that watches this show knows that I don't like the terms conservative and liberal, just like I don't like the terms black skin and white skin. I think the color of your skin doesn't determine anything about your, as we said last night, about your the personality that you have, the behavior that you have, the ethics that you have, the morals. That's up to you individually. Whether or not you succeed at whatever you want to try at doesn't have anything to do with the color of your skin. Doesn't matter if you have 100 racist people that come up against you. You just need to go around those people and keep achieving. Sounds crazy, but that's the truth. Those are cultural differences, not racial differences. The color of skin doesn't make people act a certain way or put people into the inner city. That's just the choices that people make. Well, it's the same thing when it comes to the judges and the agents and these political appointees. These are people that, based on their behavior, based on the things that they do, we can look and we can say, okay, they are obviously, like let's take Mueller for instance. Obviously, he is in bed with people that hate Trump and love Clinton. I mean, he hired a majority of the attorneys that are working for him on this special prosecutor assignment were on the Clinton payroll before, which I find absolutely absurd. When we look at the unmasking that happened with Susan Powers, and as I'm reading here on FoxNews.com, and the only reason I go to Fox versus CNN or any of these other places, I do look at those as well. But usually when I come on here to read, it comes from FoxNews.com because it's just easier to read. And I don't see the opinion in these articles as much as I do. And I'm not talking about the opinion op-eds. I'm talking about the main news that they're reporting. CNN can't seem to differentiate between op-ed and news reporting. Same thing with New York Times and all these other groups. So, when we look at this on FoxNews.com, it says that, let's see here. Susan Powers, the U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations, was unmasking at such a rapid pace. Okay, first of all, why is Susan Powers, an ambassador to the United Nations, unmasking anything? Who is Susan Powers in the chain of command of the intelligence community to be unmasking stuff? That's not a question that I've heard asked on television at all. Susan Powers, ambassador. Not Susan Powers, director of the CIA. Susan Powers, head of the NSA or the NSC. You know, if McMaster's was doing this during Obama time, I'd say I hate McMaster's anyway. But I'd be saying, well, that's McMaster's. He has a right to do that. Susan Rice, okay? Susan Rice is a part of this, but Susan Rice was the national security head of the National Security Agency. I mean, I can understand, not NSA, where's my brain today? Help me out, brain room. Susan Rice's role was, why am I forgetting this right here? Good thing I got this right here. Let's just look at Susan Rice real quick. Here's another thing interesting about, okay. Sorry I'm moving so fast today, but there's some things that about these people that is shocking, and I want you to hear this. And I'm kind of glad that this mistake I just made right here kind of popped up. All right, so stand by 1 second here. I want to put a couple of pieces together. Okay, she was a national security advisor. That's what I'm trying to say. I don't know why I'm getting myself all screwed up here. The National Security Council, she was a national security advisor. If she wanted to unmask things, she has access and a reason to be involved in these investigations. Susan Powers, or Samantha Powers, keep calling her Susan Powers. Samantha Powers was the U.S. ambassador to the United Nations. She's not even, that would be like the head of HUD investigating terrorism crimes. They don't have, one doesn't have anything to do with the other. So I don't understand how it is not against the law for not just the unmasking, but for Samantha Powers to be involved in any of this stuff. She's not in any chain of command to be able to know any of this stuff. And receiving this information and distributing this information and leaking it, how is this woman not in jail? This is, okay, but let me just say this right here real quick. I want you to hear this. Samantha Powers was the U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations. Now, when we look at Susan Rice was the U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations under Bill Clinton. She also served in various capacities at the National Security Council. Go figure. Prior to that, she was in college. We're talking about people who jump from graduating college to the National Security Council to an ambassadorship and done nothing really in between at all. But here's something interesting about Susan Rice. Madeleine Albright was her babysitter when she was young. So do you see this mix of nepotism and cultivation of these people that are put into these positions? So you wonder, how is it that Susan Rice and Samantha Power are involved in this stuff? They've all had the same titles, and they're all working at the same time to unmask these people. And it says here, the unmasking exceeded 260 last year. That means when they unmask people, they overhear something on a FISA. That's like a Title III, a listening device. They overhear something. And so these things are being recorded constantly. They go back and listen to them. And if an American subject comes up, they'll listen to it. And if it's nothing, like, they had a meeting and they talked about, listen, I hope if we win, we get together, we have some great relations, and we want to thank you, for coming out here and have a cookie and here's some coffee. Take care. Okay. They don't say anything about that. They didn't do anything wrong. It's typical, diplomatic stuff for somebody who's about to become president, and they move on. But if they say, they go in there and they say, okay, man, I'm so glad you come here today. Listen, if I get into office, we're going to do so much stuff for you. But what I want you to do is help us screw up this election against Hillary Clinton. Now, that's something big, okay? So what they'll do then is they unmask the name, and then they start an investigation on that. That's the way this whole thing, I'm really dumbing this down tremendously, or I would almost say dumbing it down, simplifying it to an extent where people can just see kind of the steps that are happening here. So anybody that's watching that has done this stuff before, don't say, that's not exactly what happened. Yeah, I know it's not exactly what happened, but we're not going to go into great detail explaining step by step how somebody gets unmasked. But you get the picture here. If there's something that is done that is a real concern, maybe they broke a crime, or maybe there's a reasonable suspicion that they are breaking crimes with a foreign entity, then they can unmask that person and start an investigation. There's other reasons why somebody could be unmasked, but just simply that they came up on the FISA is not a reason to unmask somebody. According to FoxNews.com, where they had some unauthorized sources, who I am getting sick and tired of this, of people having unauthorized sources. Like it says, two sources who were not authorized to speak on the record. Well, they shouldn't do a story on it then, as far as I'm concerned. It throws, even on Fox, it throws total, like, almost not disbelief in the story, but it kind of just kills the credibility. It's like the same thing that they said. We talked to a guy who was drunk, and he said this. Well, I can't trust what a drunk guy is going to say after he saw a car crash. If somebody's not going to allow them to say who it was, then I'm only going to trust a lot of the things they say at limited face value. But for the sake of this story, they said that it exceeded 260 unmaskings last year. One source indicated this occurred in the final days of the Obama White House. Now, that is the key to this. I don't know how many of these unmaskings happen on a regular basis, but I do know that when they amp up right at the end of a president's term, that is very fishy. To me, that shows evidence that they were fishing rather than reporting. And unless they just got, oh my gosh, the whole thing just broke out. But all along, I've been saying that I think that the Democratic Party, not the Republican Party. I've been saying all along that people are getting it all 180 degrees backwards. That it's not President Trump that has had this relationship with Russia. It's the Democratic Party that has this relationship with Russia, primarily the Clintons, but Debbie Wasserman Schultz and others that have this relationship. And what has happened is that they had Russian entities hack the DNC email. That's why Russian footprints were left behind, yet the DNC never did anything to stop it from happening, even after being warned by the FBI. For a month, they did nothing about it. Very strange. They then used the victim card after that. I think they knew that somebody like Seth Rich or somebody had given the emails and information over to WikiLeaks, and so they used this as a way to make it look like they had been victimized by the DNC, or excuse me, by Russia. And then I keep saying I think that the Russian ambassador or somebody in the office with the Russian ambassador is a source for the DNC, and they work closely with the DNC. Remember, the DNC, the Clintons, the Debbie Wasserman Schultz, they're all kind of like this, where it's nepotism. They all ran in the same circles. They all work together. You don't see them venturing out of this really close, tight-knit circle of who's in power at any given time. And so, to me, it just made sense that it's easy to unmask something when you know something is coming. So instead of it being reactive, where they go in there and they have, a week's worth of stuff to listen, so they listen, they hear Paul Manafort or Trump or Donald Trump Jr. or somebody talking, setting up a meeting, which is totally normal. Hillary Clinton did the same thing with her staff, with Russian ambassadors or ambassadors from other places, and they listen. And they say, okay, there's Trump talking. There's Manafort talking. Okay, there's nothing really there. All right, let's move on. I think what happened was they knew that these meetings were going to happen, or they were anticipating these meetings happen, or they had the Russian ambassador reach out and set up a meeting with the Trumps specifically to ask certain things, or just to show that they were meeting, to offer certain things, to say certain things, to say that they had certain information. These are the Russians. So that it could be recorded, so that it could then be unmasked, and they could show, oh, Trump was out there doing all this stuff with the Russians. Nobody has even looked at that, because here's what I've been seeing all along, is if Trump and Manafort and all the, Mike Flynn, for instance, Mike Flynn has been in intelligence for as long as I've been in government service. And you're going to tell me that Mike Flynn set out to just go and look, I don't know what Mike Flynn's deal is. I'm no fan of Mike Flynn. I'm not backing him at all. But I'm here to say that he's either the dumbest man in intelligence work, which I don't think he surpasses Clapper, but let's say he does, where he goes, sets up a meeting with the Russians, full well knowing that these people are going to be listened to, which they are. They all are. I'm not giving away any classified information. Everybody listens to everybody. And if you think you can meet secretly with any ambassador and it's going to be in secret, you're kidding yourself. So either Mike Flynn was the dumbest man in intelligence and just went out there and wheeled and dealed, forgetting that it's going to be overheard, or the meetings were purposely created by the Russians for the DNC and the intelligence community that's loyal to the DNC, so that they could record overhears of the Russians asking them certain things or implying certain things or calling them saying, hey, I'd like to meet to talk about this. And so they go there and they meet and they talk about it. They say, hey, I got some information on some stuff, whatever. So do you see there's a game that's being played, the potential of a game that's been played here that nobody is looking at. And when I look at the number of these unmaskings toward the end of the year, 260 last year, and many of those occurred in the final days of the Obama White House, what that tells me is that the meetings increased and the scrambling to record these things increased as well, and the unmasking was happening at a very rapid pace. So in other words, meet, record, unmask. I can guarantee you, folks, if there was an FBI agent or a CIA agent or somebody from the NSC that loves America, and I know they're there, all the FBI is not bad, all the CIA is not bad. In fact, the majority of people that are bad in the FBI and the CIA are at headquarters or they're in the executive level. I would say some supervisors and above. Most supervisors are good. Most agents are good. But if they overheard something and the FBI wasn't doing anything about it, I can guarantee you, folks, there would be a couple of people that would say, I can't hang with this. This is corruption. I've got to do something about it. And they would come out and they would have leaked it. But you're not seeing that. So all I'm seeing is rumors and hisses and words that there were things unmasked. But I'm not really, there's been nothing, nothing has been reported. Nothing's been reported. Now you turn on MSNBC and you watch Rachel Maddow, and what do you see there? You see her doing the exact opposite of what I'm doing, yet she has no investigative experience. And I guarantee you the people that are her little brain room has no investigative experience. So what they're doing is they are analyzing this from, like when they were saying that these overhears occurred and that the entry was made into Paul Manafort's house, they're saying it had to be bad. If they were going in with a no-knock warrant and picked the lock and went in, they had to be worried that he was going to destroy evidence. And I'm here to tell you, folks, I mean, those of you that are watching this, and I know some of you are, I'm looking at you right here, that have been in a position where you've done warrants before, how many no-knock warrants have you ever heard where they picked the lock just so they could go in there to make sure they don't flush papers or destroy a computer? I mean, you can knock on the door. If they don't answer the door, especially where the guy was in the Trump Tower, use the card reader that you got from the front desk and open the door and walk in there. It just doesn't, the smell test there, it doesn't pass. So when I look at Samantha Power, not Susan Powers, I don't know, Samantha Power, and I hope I wrote that right on here. Let me see this real quick. I call her Powers, but it's Power. I can't fix that now. Samantha Power. When I look at Samantha Power and this unmasking, and I add that to the way that Robert Mueller is doing this investigation, the investigation was caused because Comey leaked information. Comey was fired by Rod Rosenstein, which I believe, if I have to look at this, that the whole thing was orchestrated. I have to believe that the whole thing is orchestrated and that Jeff Sessions either has dirt on him that somebody's found in there, so he's just shut his mouth, or Jeff Sessions is just another one of these establishment politicians that masks himself as a good old boy, and they're screwing President Trump. I don't know. It's all, none of this stuff passes the smell test. Watergate, you had people break in. They got caught. Nixon, from all the things that we can gather, knew nothing about this. This was operatives within the RNC that were doing this. Why Nixon got impeached and resigned was because he tried to, once he found out about it, he tried to cover it up. It was cut and dry. This happened, then he did that, boom, he's destroyed. What I'm seeing here is so illegal, so unethical, such an abuse of power in our federal government, that when I watched Lou Dobbs tonight, and I actually like Lou Dobbs, met him, been on his show several times, I think he's a great guy. I could see the frustration when he was questioning the guy from Judicial Watch about, because the guy from Judicial Watch, they do great work. They come up with a lot of stuff. But he's asking him, what is the American people supposed to do? What are we supposed to do? What are we going to do? And the guy from Judicial Watch said, I don't know. And I'm here to tell you, folks, I don't know either. This is a witch hunt. I don't care if you like President Trump or not. If you're liberal and you're watching this, okay, I'm not against you because you're liberal. If you're communist, get off the show. We don't have any need for you. And if we go to civil war, I hope the communists in this country are the first ones that are taken out. I'm going to say that right off the bat. If you're a Marxist, you should be gone from this country. I think Marxism should be outlawed in this country. I'm going to say it. It's subversive. It wants the destruction of the United States. It wants the division of the people. It's too dangerous. It's a national security risk. It should be eliminated from this earth, just like neo-Nazis. Those things should not be allowed to be here. I forgot what my point was there. But when it comes to this stuff that is going on, I don't know what we can do about this. Because if you're liberal, this is where I was going with this. If you're liberal, I'm not against you. See, if you say I'm liberal, I'm conservative, I don't think you realize the fact that ultimately, majority of people in this country, they just want whatever's effective to be done, and they want the country to survive, to be able to be free, to see movies and plays when they want, to take their kids to school when they, and then to worship in the religion that they want, and to tell old Susie May that I don't like you, or old Bobby Joe that you're a jerk, be free to say that, or whatever they want to say, Try to have to accomplish things, the opportunity that comes with freedom to be your best and to achieve and become extremely wealthy and have children or not have children. That's the American way. That's freedom. It gives you the individuality to be your best, but also gives you the opportunity to choose to come together. There's nothing closer to heaven or the Garden of Eden itself than when large groups of people choose to come together and serve each other and help. It's the closest to godliness that you can come. Not being forced, not the synthesis that communism talks about, where you're forced into a synthesis through any means, by any means necessary. If you're liberal or you're conservative, you have to admit to me right now. Say it to your phone or your computer. Say it. I just want what's effective as a solution. I just want things fixed. I want people to be taken care of that need it. I want people to be given a hand up if they need it. I want people that are bags of ass to be pushed out of the way so we can continue to move forward. I'm going to say it. I'm not against helping people get a step up in life, but I am 100% against giving handouts to people who do nothing. To me, those people, I'm sorry I'm using this phrase, but they're a bag of asses, and they need to be pushed out of the way. Get out of the way of everybody else that's trying to succeed. If you want to succeed, come on back. Otherwise, get out of the way. If you go join a gang, you're going to go to jail. You deal drugs because it's hard and you got to make money, you're going to go to jail. Go get yourself 2 or 3 jobs like my mom did, like I did. Set your dreams higher. Try to go in the military. If you're 16, 17 years old and you're rolling with a gang, you got 2 choices. Start living your life correctly or go to jail, as far as I'm concerned. Make the jails great big, except make them extremely strict. Have them make all the food for homeless people and for vets. Give veterans free food. You want to do dumb things and you want to join in that bag of asses, go ahead. You can go to jail and you can work for the American people. That's the proper welfare system. But if you're liberal, you're conservative, and you say I'm liberal, I'm conservative, you're not. That's the point I'm trying to make with this rambling stuff that I'm saying here is you are not liberal or conservative. You're being fed this. You need to realize it. I wish sometimes I could shake Rick Unger until he gets it. I love the guy to death. But there is no this way is the only way that's correct, and I'm always going to fall on this side. I will never fall on any just one side. I fall right where the Constitution is when it comes to legal matters, but when it comes to fixing things, you just need to say, okay, here's 3 ways it could be fixed. Which one's the easiest? Which one's the most least expensive? And which one is the most effective? It's going to get it done. And you just do it. I keep saying, where am I going with this? To circle back around. We are being played over and over again by this. You see how small this group of people is. When I talk about Samantha Power, and I talk about the power that she was wielding when she's not even in the chain of command for the intel community. When you look at her resume, you look at Susan Rice's resume, it's identical. When you look at Barack Obama's resume next to Ted Cruz's resume, it's identical. How do these people get up here? They're cultivated. And that was my own theory. I asked David Horowitz about this, about communists that are in the government. He said, absolutely, those people are cultivated. Absolutely. Folks, the guy from Judicial Watch couldn't tell you what to do because Judicial Watch and the people that run it, they have a strict mission where they're trying to figure out what's going on and they're digging and doing these things. They're not a resolution group. I am an answer man. I come up with answers. I'm a fix-it guy. I'm the fixer. My buddy Michael Jack says, rule number 2, get involved, change system from within by using the system against your enemies. That's exactly what they're doing to us. We can't allow this stuff to continue to happen. We just can't. It's got no point. It's got no point where, again, we're not even in the election cycle from last year. Last year, if I'd had more time, I would have sat every night and charted out. Well, I don't have the room, really. I live in Manhattan. But if I had the analyst notebook stuff that we had in the bureau, excuse me for a second, where it charts all these people, you could have listed all these people long before the Russian conspiracy came out, long before Hillary Clinton lost. You could have been charting all these people and the things that they've done, where they came from, their education. I mean, you can still do it now. But you would be amazed if you sat back and listed for the past 30 years, the players in politics, in media, in activism, the rich people, and you started charting them. You charted where their money comes from. You chart on their connections. You chart on and on. You chart everything about them, the conspiracies they've been involved with, the different issues that have come up that they've been involved with. And you will start to see that it is a very, very small group of people. A very small group of people. They live above the law. They don't ever get in trouble. Nothing ever happens. How many of you are prepared for... Sorry, I hit the wrong button. There you go. It's one of those days. It's crazy. I'm looking at foxnews.com, trending in politics, right? This is what's trending in news of politics. Number one, Samantha Powers, what we're talking about, Samantha Power, what we're talking about here. Number two, nope, it's not Mueller makes extensive requests to the White House for Trump documents. Nope, that's number four. Number two is Melania Trump is bullied over pink dress. And I guess number three is Sheriff Clark lost his freaking nerve on somebody and cursed out a reporter. Folks, it's just unbelievable. Let's put some real news up here, and then let's throw a shiny thing up there so you'll make sure that we'll get the click on it so we get the advertising. I don't know if I'm going to solve anything tonight, but I'm bringing up as much stuff as I possibly can. Because what I want you to know, folks, you own this country, and you're just giving it away. You're just giving it away. Now, I love the fact that we get hundreds of people that come on this show every night, and that you all partake in great conversations together. You have real dialogue. We've ginned up the Constitutional Quick Reaction Force, the CQRF. I got to come up with some more stuff for us to do so everybody can get involved in that. Put out a meme and everybody retweets it or repost it. I'm going to work on something tonight, and we'll do that for Thursday night. I'll have a meme already ready. But I hope you all see, you know, over the past 2 years since I've been doing this show, live on my own, all paid for out of my pocket and from the GoFundMe page you see scrolling across here, this show has been funded. Every night, I come up here and I spend the daytime either writing for, I'm already started on my second book. The first book is in the publishing phase now, where it's getting formatted and everything so it can come out in December as we put the date. By the way, I challenge any other author out there. I'd love to know this. How many other authors have written a book in 2 months? I wrote this book in 2 months. When I first got the contract, I had 16,000 words that I wrote 2 years ago. And then I sat it down. And most of that stuff had come from ideas and notes that I had from 2004. And then I used them in the FBI and compiled all those notes. I wrote about the outline, the introduction, and strangely enough, the conclusion to the book. And that was about it. I get the contract, and within 2 months, I had completed the book. Post Hill Press, amazing. They said, if you can get it done in 2 months, we can get it out by December. I know somebody else who just got a book deal the same time I did. Their book doesn't come out until the winter of 2018. Post Hill Press is a machine of teamwork. So I've already started on my second book. Where am I going with that? The impossible is possible. That's where I'm going with it. I am somebody that when you say CNN tells me, we have this phone call. I knew it was coming. I already said to myself and to other people I wasn't going to sign again with CNN, no matter how much of a financial crisis it would put me in. I'm not going to sign with CNN again. This was last year. Of course, they felt mutual because they don't like people who tell the truth. They don't go by their narrative. So that plus the fact that I'm on a do not book list at Fox for some strange reason. I don't know why that is. I have still yet to find out why. Sometimes you just say things that they don't like as well as the truth there. And it is what it is, but I'm going to try to work that out so we can get back on Fox. But people said, well, what are you going to do now? You got the radio. You're hosting on the radio. I said, I'm going to write a book, and I'm going to start my own show. And that's what I've done. Except I don't have a narrative. You see this GoFundMe page? That's what pays for this show. I took the impossible and did it, and now we are circumventing the nightly news that's on with all the opinions, and I just come on here and I give you, it sounds like I'm giving you opinion, folks, but I'm not saying anything that goes outside of my training and experience. I'm not going to talk about insurance and healthcare, except for the fact that I know politics and I know how bureaucracies work, and I can tell you based on the evidence that I've gathered and that I've seen that the Republican Party and the Democratic Party, neither one of them wanted us to have health care. They thought Hillary Clinton was going to get elected, so they figured we could just keep padding our pockets with the people that helped us pass and pay for Obamacare in the first place. That's what they thought. I don't care how mad they act. They're a bunch of liars. The impossible is possible. Don't let people tell you that it's not. Impossible is a word that people that are either weak or that people that don't want you to succeed use. People that know the power of freedom, people that know the fulfillment of service, and people that know the phenomenal strength of unity will never use the word impossible, except in saying, that's not impossible. Unity is what we need to do. We need to get together, continue to come here. Scott Ulinger is going to run for Congress in Pennsylvania. He's the CIA agent that I have on here quite often. I got his picture right here. I'll show you. Let me turn this off. Hold on. Where are you, Scott? Oh, that's his name. Where's his picture at? Doop, doop, doo. Well, I had his picture up there. Maybe I got rid of it. But Scott Ulinger is the CIA agent that's been on here quite a bit. He is running for Congress in Pennsylvania. He is looking for people to donate to his. He's looking for some big donors to donate to his campaign. I recommend that people get on board. I will try to get, if he has a website or whatever, for you all to get on board with Scott Ulinger. And if you're in Pennsylvania, and I'll find out what districts he's in, you need to get the CQRF in Pennsylvania needs to get behind Scott Ulinger. If you think that you want to run for something, one person running for something like Scott is going to make a difference, perhaps. But the more people that we get that are part of this train of thought, that get on board with this, they will be able to make a difference in this country. That's going to be one thing. I get people asking me all the time. I'm serious. I'm not just saying this because I'm sitting here talking. I get people asking me all the time saying, you should run for president. And I remember having a conversation with somebody about over 2 years ago off of Fox News, and they're from Arkansas, where I'm from, and they what they do is campaign fundraising. And I said, you know, people have been asking me regularly, this one is on TV all the time, they're like, you should run for president, because there wasn't no Trump back then. Trump hadn't come in, it wasn't even being talked about. And I've never been in politics before. And that's what the person said. They're like, you've never been in politics. You know, you're just a name. I had somebody recently tell me an agent for people. An agent for different celebrities. And I was talking to them one day about booking somebody, and how I thought that something I said on Sean Hannity's show was going to spin up. I was worried about it, and they said, well, why would you be worried about that? You're nobody. Man, let me tell you something. And that just happened like 2 weeks ago. You want to make somebody stirred up, tell a SEAL that he's nobody. I don't care if he hadn't been in the SEAL team for 40 years. You tell them they're nobody. That's going to set a fire inside of them. Where am I going with this? The point is, if American people wanted to fix things, they would look for somebody like myself to run for president. They would put money behind Scott Eulinger, get him in Congress. They would do this all over the place and get real people up there that maybe they couldn't do anything at first, but you get 100 or 200 people up there, maybe 300 people, eventually it's going to be just like, and I know Michael Jack can talk about this, and my buddy Eric can talk about the NYPD. These are perfect examples of the opposite direction. If you take the crappiest people in your agency and you put them in charge of recruiting, within 10 years, you're going to have an agency that's just destroyed. And that's what's happened in the FBI. Clinton came in, a lot of the warfighters got out, 9/11 happened, the reality of who took over were majority of ladder climbers were the ones that were at the top. And so they took over during 9/11 because counterterrorism is huge. So now the Bureau is filled with people who were incompetent at the top. They've recruited people based on their incompetencies and the political stuff that was implemented through Obama. And Bush didn't prepare for, because I think Bush is in on all this, to tell you the truth. But the FBI is destroyed. NYPD is having a terrible time. I remember when I was on one of the squads, and I saw one of the detectives I was on the squad with slam his phone down. I was like, dude, what's happening? He goes, that was recruitment calling from the NYPD, and he was asking if I arrested a girl for prostitution several years ago, and I said, yeah, and he goes, and I was asking, why are you asking? What'd she do? And they said, no, she applied to go to the academy. And he was like, and they're like, no, she's in. We just wanted to make sure she was being truthful. Now, I suppose she's a cop / former prostitute. When you reverse that and you start putting the right people in government, not people that are chosen by the establishment, people that are chosen by you, real people say, listen, I've got something to offer. I want to go up there and be a part of this solution. Well, it's not going to happen at first. You got to start building that foundation. But before long, if you get 100 or 200 people in there, even 50, you would be able to, if they stood together for what's effective, you could shock Washington, D.C. Imagine if you had somebody like me as president. I don't listen. I'm not going to go up and give. I don't know if I'd ever give a teleprompter speech. Maybe I would every now and then, but I don't know. I'll tell you one thing. If I was ever elected president, after I get sworn in, there's not going to be any of that getting out of the limo and walking around. We're going straight to the White House and start working. Those balls, maybe we'll have one. But there's not going to be any week-long celebration. You know who's celebrating during an inauguration? Those are the people that have made billions of dollars off of the rest of us, getting us excited about two political parties that are going to screw you later on by doing nothing. That's all that is. It's just pomp and circumstance. And the American people need to realize you're the one that should be celebrated, not these people that you elect. You elect. If I ever was running for president, I gave that speech and I held my hand up and said those words. So help me God. Shake his hand. Everybody claps and hems and haws. I'd turn around and I'd say, let's get to work. And I go get in that limo and I go straight to the White House and start working. And they better be out of it by then, because it's going to start right then. Any enemies that we have, it's going to start right then. Any things that need to be fixed in the grid and anything like that, it's going to start right there. And days off, listen, I don't know days off. I don't know what that is. A day off for me is, watching NASCAR on Sundays, although I don't even do that anymore because NASCAR has turned to crap. Am I frozen on Twitter, by the way? Let's see here. Hold on. Stand by. I just want to make sure. Then I'm going to talk about Puerto Rico real quick, and then we'll get out of here. Let's see here. Twitter. Are you? I've been having problems with Twitter the past day. I don't think they like me anymore on Twitter. Looks like I'm moving slow on Twitter. All right, so let's talk about. I'm not even going to go to another block. Let's just talk about Puerto Rico. They're in a world of hurt. Okay, and what you need to understand what's going on there is that. Let me redo this real quick. What's happening in Puerto Rico right now is there is over 2 million people live on Puerto Rico. I don't know the entire, I know it's over 2 million people. The entire island is without power. Now that's been going on for a day already, I believe. Maybe 2 days. If they don't have power, it means that large majority of those people are not getting water, clean water, which means they're a day away from people dying. If they're not drinking water, they're going to die within 3 days. If they're drinking water that is contaminated, they're all going to become extremely ill. If they don't have any power for the hospitals, they're going to die. If they don't have any power and people are starving or they can't drink water, they're going to start looting. Some people for the right reasons because they got to get water, and other people because they're criminals. And Puerto Rico's got a lot of them. I lived down there for a little while. It's out of control, especially at night. Now imagine at night with no lights. I can guarantee you people are going to be murdered. Things are going to be broken into and robbed. Puerto Rico right now is a perfect example of a big city in the United States if they lose power. Monitor what happens in Puerto Rico. And remember this, folks. Their entire power grid was destroyed by one storm. If something or someone comes in and destroys or injures our power grid in the United States, what you're seeing happen in Puerto Rico is going to happen in the major cities. And it's going to be bad. If you live in the cities and a storm comes through and you lose power and they say it's not going to be up for a long time, I would suggest getting in your car and leaving. You're not going to be going to work. Get out of that city. And get your water and get some food and get out of that city. Puerto Rico, Houston was in bad shape. It's still in bad shape. People now in Houston, I think, are probably in the worst shape now because there's people still trying to figure, like there's still some homes underwater, but people are now starting to realize that the process of rebuilding is an extremely tough process. They're rebuilding their lives. Florida, I made it through this okay. I guess Louisiana, they have a lot of flooding down there as well. But Puerto Rico is something that we haven't seen in this country, not in modern times. So monitor that situation. Pray for those people. But what you're going to see happen there, if it happened here in any major city, it's going to be magnified by about, 5 times. So they got a real crisis on their hands. One other thing I wanted to bring up. this story right here. I talked about Milo last week and how evidently I think Milo's going to be doing something at Berkeley, and they're going to have like a week or weekend long where people are going to be coming there and speaking, including Steve Bannon and some other people. And I did a show last week
story right here.
talking about how last week and how evidently I guess it just came back on, and how people are just jumping on the bandwagon for this freedom of speech thing. I don't know when it's going to be. Let me see if I can look it up here real quick. Let's see here. Stand by 1 second. So let's see. This is Milo's free speech. This is on Breitbart. Full lineup of Milo's Berkeley Free Speech Week revealed. This is going to be, let's see if it says when it's going to be. So these are some of the people who are going to be there, okay? This is Milo's Free Speech Week at UC Berkeley. Katie Hopkins, author. Journalist Mike Cernovich, that's who that is. Blackwater founder Eric Prince. A whole bunch of different reporters and people like that. Monica Crowley, congressional candidate. Stillian, I don't even know how to pronounce that name. A bunch of other people, entertainers are going to be up there. Stephen Bannon's going to be there. Breitbart editor-in-chief Alex Marlow, Ann Coulter, David Horowitz, Pamela Geller, and Milo himself. Now, I brought this up last week that I'm kind of outraged by this because Milo is somebody that he's an entertainer, and he's put himself on this pedestal along with whoever his agent is and Breitbart and these other conservative entertainers. And he came out during an interview and said that a man that has sex with a mature 13-year-old is not a pedophile. He said that a pedophile is somebody who is attracted to young children. So according to Milo, if he wants to have sex with a 13-year-old that's mature, that's not pedophilia. Okay? So that's why he lost his book deal, got fired from Breitbart, and fell out of graces with everybody in the Conservative Party. I mean, it wasn't just the fact that he's just an actor using this as a way. He may be conservative in real life, I don't know, but he definitely is on the Ann Coulter bandwagon, the Ben Shapiro bandwagon, where they just go around talking about how conservative they are and they're fast talkers so they can do good in debates. But I pose this question for you, okay? Pennsylvania man who sexually assaulted 6 girls gifted to him. He's being sentenced. 30 to 87 years. I don't know how they come up with... He was sentenced to 30 to 87 years in prison. I don't know how they came up with that span of time. But he's 52, who fathered 2 children with one of the girls. Now, I want you to listen to this, and then I want you to think about what Milo had to say. Two children with one of the girls was charged on multiple counts of child rape, statutory sexual assault, and other charges. He was charged with that, okay? Authorities said the family gifted the oldest daughter to Kaplan because he helped them financially after they abandoned their Amish faith. The mother said she believed sexual activity would be a good thing for their daughters. Now, here's the big thing I want you to listen to. Isn't that just sick? That's sick, okay? That is a whole group of sick people. Prosecutors said the victim considered... Now, let me ask you something. Is there anybody that's a weirdo that's watching this show right now that doesn't consider that sick? I know Twitter's probably got a couple of them. Everybody else in here, unanimously, I know you say that that's sick, okay? Prosecutors said the victim considered themselves to be Kaplan's wives. The girl, who was twice impregnated, was 14 the first time. Now, this guy is considered a weirdo and is going to go to jail, right? He's not going to have a, what's this guy's name? Lee Kaplan. You're not going to have Lee Kaplan Free Speech Week up in Berkeley. 52, speaker for the conservative alt-right movement, Lee Kaplan, 52, charged with rape and sexual assaulting a child who was 14. He's going to have his own Free Speech Week up in Berkeley. How about everybody's going to go up there? Bannon, everybody, y'all going to be up there? Probably not. So why is it any different when a guy named Milo, that's some kind of flamboyant speaker, comes out and says that it's okay for a 20-something-year-old man to have sex with a 13-year-old if the 13-year-old's mature, and that's not considered pedophilia? He says that. Everybody goes, ugh. And all of a sudden, he's having a Free Speech Week at Berkeley, and everybody's jumping on the bandwagon to go there? Does anybody else have a problem with this besides me? I don't get it. Somebody said on here on Twitter, hell no, he's looking for attention to get letters in his long stay in prison. I don't know who you're talking about there. If you're talking about Milo, Milo's not going to prison, but what I'd like everybody to do, okay, from the Constitutional Quick Reaction Force, two things I want you to do. Well, three things. I'm going to tell you three things. If you haven't pre-ordered this book right here, go order it. Tell everybody about it to go pre-order. It's $13 now. I told you it was going to go back up. It could go back down. I don't know. If it goes back down, you get the lower price from Amazon. You can go to Barnes & Noble too. Go pre-order it. If you pay $50, we're going to get you a signed copy. We still have to figure out Jim DeLong, who came up with the idea. I love the idea, but we're going to have to figure out the logistics for this. If I have to deliver every single one personally, I'll do it. I'm not going to let people down again. But $50 gets you a signed book, but you don't have to pay that. You can go just buy one for $13, but donate to the GoFundMe page. You're going to see it scroll across there. The other thing I want you to do, tomorrow I'm going to bring this up again. I want you, and I want everybody, there's like 100 and something people watching right now. I want you to go to Twitter, if you have a Twitter account, and I hope that you do. And I want you to write Breitbart News. And I want you to say, and you can tag Milo on there. I don't know if Stephen Bannon has an account on Twitter. Let me look and see if he does. What I want you to do is I want you to write Breitbart, and I want you to tag Milo and tag. I'll come up with a different list every day. And I want you to tag these people and say, how can you be okay with going to a free speech event sponsored by a guy who's okay with pedophilia? How is that okay? I don't know if this is his actual account. It's not verified, so I doubt it. Nah. I don't know. There's like different accounts for Stephen Bannon, so I don't know which one's real. Whoa, that was my stomach. So, we got to start hammering these people, because to me, this just isn't right, folks. It's just not right. How can we stand together against people like Mueller and Comey and the Clintons if in our own party, which again, I don't believe in parties, but you got to think the people that are out there talking to the realist, to the open-minded thinkers. One of the things with Milo is he kind of talks to the people that are liberal because he's gay, and he talks that big whole gay thing up. And how can we stand against the people in Washington, D.C. if we allow this to permeate our free-thinking society? You have to draw the line somewhere, folks. There's got to be a point where you draw the line. And I think this is it. All right. Let's go to the True Zone. I think that's about enough. I'm sweating. I know it's a good show when I sweat. I got the air conditioner cranked, but I still sweat. Let me see what else anybody has for me real quick before I go over there. All right. Let's take a deep breath. Sometimes I don't want to even get off the show. I just want to read what you all are writing. Listen. I want to say one other thing before I go, and I want everybody to listen up very closely. If you go on to the Friends of Jonathan T. Gilliam page, okay, I've been seeing a lot of reports of people using profanity over there and posting stuff that's inappropriate. All I got to do is tell Jim DeLong, and he'll yank that page right down. Okay, I don't want my name associated with anything that's going to have profanity or anything like that. And as far as the administrators go, you better start policing who gets on there, because I already had to delete somebody's account the other day. It was a fake account that kept putting up polls, and I have a feeling it was virus-oriented. Listen, there's people out there that don't like me, right? Don't approve of every single person that comes on there. But if people are going to start acting amok on there, I don't care if you've been a part of this show for 2 years. I will block you and yank that whole thing down. If my name is attached to it, it's going to be the best. And I don't put up with nonsense like that. I say things like bag of ass sometimes when I'm getting hot and heavy into it. But by and large, I don't curse. And I don't listen, I have standards. I'm not like Milo and the rest of these people, or Tommy Lahrens, who go back and forth. I live by the Bible. I make mistakes just like anybody else, but I have my standards and my morals, my ethics, and that's what I go on. And I expect anybody that associates my name to something for it to be the same way. And I have no problem walking away from stuff like that. So clean it up. I don't want to hear people complaining anymore that there's foul language and people getting in arguments and stuff like that on the Friends of Jonathan T. Gilliam page. That's the last thing that page is for. All right, you want to put information up there to help people out. You want to have good discussions. Go do it. Go back to these shows after the shows are over and have dialogue on there. You still can have dialogue where the chat session is. Let's go to the Truth Zone. I got to stop drinking coffee at 9 o'clock at night, but it's good. Dog dad. All right. Never been a knuckle cracker. I pretty much said everything that I want to say today before the Truth Zone, but here's the thing, folks. I get up here and I do this show every night. And I go long sometimes not. But I got to tell you, whenever I'm talking to this camera, I feel as though I'm talking to every single one of you. I don't feel like I'm perpetrating a fraud sitting up in here in this tiny little booth that I've created. Maybe that's why it's so hot in here. The little sound booth that I'm in. But I show up, you show up, I have a conversation with you. And I say this every night, it's important that we continue this conversation. But in reflecting on what we talked about today and what I talked about last week. Last week I mentioned this stuff about Milo. There should be, this week, people should be, I didn't see anybody tagging me or the CQRF on social media going after Milo and this free speech week at Berkeley and the Conservative Party and Stephen Bannon and Breitbart. I didn't see any of that. You should be going against that. I don't have to set up, you are the CQRF. I don't have to lead you in there to do these things. I don't mind being the leader. I'm a leader. That's what I like to do. I like to lead. But I'm also somebody who likes to be in the trenches. So don't wait on me. If you start something and I see it CQRF, I'll repost that. And I would expect everybody else to do the same. The CQRF, the Constitution, and this United States were not created so that one person could lead. I talk about this a lot. The Jews wandered through the desert and God led them. If you read this in the Old Testament, as the Jews were led through the desert by Moses, God was with them. When Moses went up on the mountain and came back down with the 10 Commandments, he met with God. They saw that there was the cloud and that God was hanging over the mountain. But still, the people longed for an idol to worship, so they took all the gold and they made a calf out of it, and then they worshipped it. It's no different than George Clooney now, or a president that we put at the top, or a Hillary Clinton. You don't need idols. The whole concept of marching through the desert was to wring out the disbelief in God, to wring out the system that had gotten into these people over years and years of being enslaved in Egypt. It's time for us to come together and wring ourselves out like a towel. Get rid of this stuff that makes you feel like I have to be taken care of. Somebody else has to lead us. Take the lead. Be the lead. Rise up and be an army of one, but rise up together and be a unified citizenry again. I'm Jonathan Gillum. As always, my buddy Rico's down there asleep. This is the experts. You are the citizenry of this country. Unite. The truth has arrived. How many of you are prepared for an incident like this? Get my new book, Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival, and I will teach you to think like an attacker so you can truly defend yourself. Don't just react, act. Available for pre-order now on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Sheep No More. Get it.